Hello, this is Professor Thanks, and once again, I'm here to share some hints for your fashion business in about, 10 to 15 minutes or so. Today, I'd like to tackle a question that many of us in the fashion industry have probably asked ourselves. How does Uniqlo, a brand known for its affordable prices, manage to consistently generate such solid profits? You know as well as I do, in today's apparel market, we're facing, rising production costs, higher labor expenses, and this incredibly intense discount competition. In this environment, it's become very, very difficult to hold on to your profits, even if you manage to increase sales. And that's why today our key perspective is not sales, but operating profit. See, Uniqlo is a perfect example of a company that generates profit through a well-designed system, not by, just chasing fleeting trends. And the best part is, this way of thinking isn't just for giant corporations. It can absolutely be applied by smaller brands and even individual labels. So let's spend our time today breaking down exactly where and how Uniqlo creates its operating profit. My goal is to organize these ideas so you can clearly imagine how to apply them to your own brand. So, where does Uniqlo's operating profit actually come from? In short, it's created through really two core mechanisms. First, a structure that fundamentally lowers costs, and second, a structure that skillfully avoids, excessive discounting. Even though they sell at low prices, Uniqlo remains profitable because it wins through its structure, not just its pricing. It's a game of gross margin. Let's look at the first mechanism, retaining intermediate margins through the SPA model. Uniqlo's greatest characteristic, as I'm sure many of you know, is its SPA model. That stands for a specialty store retailer of private label apparel. In simple terms, it just means they control everything, planning, production, and sales entirely in-house. Think about what that eliminates. There are no wholesalers or distributors taking a piece of the pie. Product planning is all done internally, and they build direct partnership contracts with their factories. In other words, the intermediate margins, the ones that would normally become someone else's profit, are kept right inside the company. To put it very simply, if you and a traditional brand are selling the exact same t-shirt, Uniqlo just has fewer people taking a cut along the way. That retained margin is pure fuel for their profit. So, how can you apply this to your own brand? Well, you can start by, trying to reduce your reliance on OEM companies and increase direct negotiations with factories. You could also think about limiting your number of SKUs or styles to concentrate your order volumes and gain more negotiating power. Even for small brands, there is significant room to improve your gross margin here. It's really worth exploring. Now for the second mechanism, which is just as important, supply and demand adjustment. This means they do not produce on the assumption of future sales. Instead of that old produce first and then figure out how to sell it model, Uniqlo rigorously follows a system of additional production based on actual sales data. They conduct weekly, sometimes even daily, analysis of what's selling. They make replenishment decisions based on specific sizes, colors, and regions. And crucially, they do not chase after slow-moving products. They cut their losses early. And what does this achieve? Well, it prevents the need for that large-scale end-of-season discounting that, it just absolutely erodes your gross margin. Let me give you an analogy from another industry. In the food business, right? A convenience store secures its profits by minimizing waste, by not having to throw away unsold food. Apparel works in exactly the same way. Not having leftover inventory, that is a profit strategy in itself. So what are the application points for your brand? You could implement small lot production. You could lean into pre-order sales to gauge demand before committing to a large run. Or you could increase production only after checking the response to a new item on your social media. The key takeaway, and this is important, is this: you must start viewing inventory as a cost, not an asset on your books. Okay, so there's one more piece to this puzzle, and it's this: using stores for experience and e-commerce for profit. Although Uniqlo operates many physical stores, its rising e-commerce ratio is a major contributor to its operating profit. And there's a clear strategy here. Physical stores are for fitting, for reassurance, for the customer experience. People can touch the fabric, try on the sizes, and feel confident in the brand. But the profit is increasingly earned on their EC site, which has, of course, much lower labor and rent costs. In other words, higher gross margins are systematically generated online. So how can you apply this? Think about using pop-up stores mainly for fitting, and creating an experience. Then use your social media, or say a line account, to drive customers to your e-commerce site to make the actual purchase. When you start separating where customers experience the brand from where you earn the profit, you can fundamentally change your brand's profit design. Okay, let's quickly summarize. There are 3 key perspectives to learn from Uniqlo's model. First, cost. Uniqlo's approach is to eliminate intermediaries. You can apply this by rebuilding your factory and ordering structure. Second, inventory. Uniqlo's approach is a designed system that avoids discounting. You can apply this with small production lots and pre-orders. And third, sales channels. Uniqlo's approach is a clear division of roles between stores and EC. You can apply this by separating the customer experience from where you make the profit. Look, in the end, Uniqlo is not simply a company that sells cheap clothes. It is a company that meticulously designs systems where profit remains. And this way of thinking, it works regardless of your company's scale. What truly matters is not what you sell, but where and how profit is structurally retained in your business. So I encourage you to take these ideas, translate them into the context of your own brand, and really think them through carefully. And that's all for today. Professor Thank's Fashion Business Class is also available as a podcast, newsletter, and on YouTube. Please search for Professor Thank's Fashion Business Class and check out the web text as well. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Bye-bye.